Honored to be with you as always. We're here at the Bitcoin.com studio. Buy, sell, and trade Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com, your gateway to democratized finance. Just a reminder to get your tickets to our Student Action Summit coming up in 2 weeks. That's right. Can you believe it's 2 weeks away? 2 weeks away in Tampa, Florida. SAS2025.com. We have Pete Hegseth, we have Kristi Noem, we have Steve Bannon, we have Tucker Carlson, we have Donald Trump Jr. The biggest speakers in the movement will be with us in Tampa, Florida, SAS2025.com. There is a major story that is bubbling up, and I've had my eyes on this for the last couple of weeks, and I've been waiting for a time to explain it. Now, a lot of people are getting fired up online about this, and the anger is partially justified, but not totally. And we need to kind of just take a step back and make sure that we do not get too intense too early in a way that might not actually be rooted in facts or substance. But there is some truth to it. We got to get the facts. That's what our show does. We explore the facts. We are a truth-seeking show. So as you know, President Trump's big, beautiful bill is working its way through Congress. This very difficult process of getting people like Susan Collins and Don Bacon and getting all the moderate Republicans to agree on spending cuts and border security and just all the different elements of this process have been exhausting. We're finally getting to a place of completion where we have to find out whether or not the components of the bill are allowed to remain. What do you mean by that? So remember, this is a reconciliation bill. So when a bill is a reconciliation bill, it has a very precise technical meaning. It literally means that you are reconciling the budgets of two different fiscal years. And so a reconciliation bill, because you are reconciling two different budgets from two different years, does not require 60 votes. Said more bluntly, you can bypass the filibuster. The filibuster, of course, requires 60 votes to then get to quorum and then get to a vote on the specific piece of legislation. So, for example, if they wanted to go pass a bill right now, Congress, on something that was non-reconciliation, it would require 60 votes. Now, all of this is just Senate rules. They could change the rules at any time. The Senate was intended to actually become a majoritarian body. Thomas Jefferson actually always wanted it to be a majoritarian body. On the other side, though, the fact that we had the filibuster stopped a lot of the totally insane stuff that Joe Biden wanted to do during his administration. And so we shouldn't be too quick to throw out the filibuster. So in front of us now is an opportunity to pass President Trump's hallmark agenda bill, the big, beautiful bill. Border funding, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, Trump tax cuts, drill, baby, drill. All of this has to fit as a budgetary financial reconciliation provision. So certain things in the bill that might not be germane to budgetary measures will be thrown out of the bill because then it does not pass the filibuster reconciliation test. Now, this is very important. It's called the Byrd Rule. So you have to pass what is called the Byrd bath. You have to pass the Byrd bath. But here's where things get a little murky and they get awfully confusing and where people are getting fired up, partially rightfully so, which is that, well, who decides? Is there a committee? Is there like a Supreme Court of the U.S. Senate? Is there a bipartisan panel? Are there people that have been there for quite some time? Who is the umpire? Who is the referee? Who is the final decision maker of what is germane to a reconciliation bill and what is not? Now, we went through this entire reconciliation process. The highest profile reconciliation fight was when? Anybody? 2009, actually, the Affordable Care Act. When Obama wanted to pass Obamacare, a lesser appreciated memory was when Obama wanted to pass this monstrosity of a health care bill and he needed 60 votes. And he had 60 votes until the lion of the Senate, Ted Kennedy, died. There was a special election in Massachusetts on the sole reason as a referendum. And Massachusetts elected a Republican senator by the name of Scott Brown to actually reject the 60 vote threshold. We in kind of conservative folklore forget this moment I was a freshman in high school, and I remember it intimately, where Obamacare was put on a referendum, and Scott Brown became a U.S. Senator from Massachusetts as a Republican, and Ted Kennedy passed away. And by the way, Ted Kennedy was a scum. He's a bad guy, a bad hombre, no good whatsoever. Different topic for a different time. So basically then Obama had to change some of the wording because 60 went down to 59 because he did not have the votes to be able to pass the filibuster. And by the way, there were a lot of what they called blue dog Democrats that basically offered themselves as sacrificial lambs. Daschle would be one of them. I think he was from Blake State of South Dakota. There were a ton of these guys that basically offered themselves up, and they have not elected Democrats in these states ever since. That was the turning point. So then who decides? So that was the fight back in 2009, 2010, and Obamacare actually became less radical and less pernicious because of the birdbath. Well, who decides? Well, it is a singular person that holds all the cards. It's a singular person that decides whether something is in the bill or something is not in the bill. She is becoming the most powerful person in Washington, D.C., and her name is Elizabeth McDonough. Now, Elizabeth McDonough, to her credit, was actually very helpful under Joe Biden. Elizabeth McDonough removed a lot of the total and complete insanity that people like AOC and Elizabeth Warren wanted to fit into reconciliation bills. However, Elizabeth McDonough right now, she holds almost all the cards, sort of. So she holds the cards because John Thune has given her the cards. And John Thune wants to allow this process to play out. And the reason why this is bubbling up to a fever pitch, and trust me, I get it, but it's my job to tell you when to get angry and also to explain things away and say, let's hold some of our fire to see if we can't figure this out. And one of the reasons why people are losing it this morning is that she removed a provision from the big, beautiful bill that would have saved us hundreds of billions of dollars, saying illegals cannot get Medicaid. Now, is that a final ruling? Is that a final gut punch? No, actually. Here's where I just encourage you to take a deep breath and to allow somewhat of this process to play out. They can reword things and go back to her. Now, this is such a broken process that this is a series of broken meetings. And here is the kicker. Here is where you are being led towards anger without all of the story. These are the Democrats that are leaking that she's blocking this. The process is still underway. I talked to top-level folks on the Senate. I also talked to the people in the office of the president of the Senate. Do you know, if you don't know who the president of the Senate is, you should do your civics lesson. It's not John Thune. And people in that whole kind of community are saying, just allow this to play out a little bit, because it's the Democrats that are actually leaking while they're going back and forth with Ms. McDonough. This is an ongoing process where they, okay, can we word it this way? Can we do it this way? And she says yes or no. Now, look, I think this is a little bit of a goofy, kind of unsustainable model that one person, one staffer, she's literally a staffer. She was not even Senate confirmed. She was not elected. She's not like, it's like this weird kind of, she's not like a new branch of government. It's a little bit too much power for a staffer. I think it should be at least a committee that you could have votes and you could have different members. There's got to be a better process than just like one staffer that obviously could be very influenced. If you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. When's the last time you checked on your home title? That's the legal proof that you own your house. If you're like me, the answer is never. The problem is, in today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and boom, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property. You won't even know it's happened until you get a collection or a foreclosure notice. That's why you need to stop what you're doing and find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code Kirk at HometitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You'll also get a free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com now. Use promo code Kirk. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Kirk. So the parliamentarian but we're here at the Bitcoin.com studio, has a lot of power right now. But just remember, back when this was under Joe Biden, in March of 2021, 24 Democrat members of Congress wrote a letter to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris requesting that Harris overrule the Senate parliamentarian raising the national minimum wage. Ultimately, Harris ruled in accordance with the parliamentarian and removed the provision. So J.D. Vance can overturn it once it gets to the floor, but this really is a John Thune thing, and John Thune's got to work through this. This is all on Senator Thune. If there is no reasoning with her on stuff that obviously is financial, for example, there's no reason whatsoever that no Medicaid funding for illegals should not be in this bill. Just figure out the right way to word it. Period. End of story. That is 100% a budgetary measure, without question. And that would save us hundreds of billions of dollars. If you can't get no Medicaid funding for illegals, figure out how to word it in a way that can pass the parliamentarian threshold. But let's be honest, this is way too much power for one person in D.C. This is structurally a problem. And if you were to fire the parliamentarian, the question is, who do you replace it with? And understand that would send shockwaves throughout the Senate. I know a lot of us in the grassroots have very little respect for this stuff, but the senators there, they think the Senate is like this wonderful thing and it's very regal and great. They think so highly of themselves, and they look at the upper chamber as being the thoughtful and philosophical chamber that really deep thinking happens. But look, we shouldn't put that off the table if it gets to it. If Elizabeth McDonough gets in the way of President Trump's agenda, then we can change the rules. There are many measures that we can get to at this point. My biggest concern is, why is this even program have one person that's able to get in the way of what we obviously want to do and what we should be able to do? She did not win 7 swing states. She did not win a popular vote majority. And she's a staffer. She's not like Senate confirmed. She's not a judge. She's not Article 3. It's really kind of a creation. Let's put this up on screen. It's very important history. So the office of the parliamentarian does have, of course, constitutional roots. Article 1, Section 5 says each house may determine the rules of its proceedings. The office of the parliamentarian were created in the House in 1927 and in the Senate in 1935. The parliamentarian answers questions from the presiding officer about the wording of motions and about precedents related to motions or actions. The current parliamentarian, as mentioned, is Elizabeth McDonough. She's been in office since 2012. Harry Reid put her there, which should make us have a little bit of pause. And by then, appointed by Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. The budget reconciliation process is only supposed to include provisions that, according to the Congressional Research Service, quote, would change laws related to direct spending, revenue, or the debt limit. Hold on. So spending, revenue, or debt limit, no Medicaid for illegals is absolutely no spending or revenue. Now, she's an officer appointed by the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, and they're generally preserved across parties to maintain harmony in the Senate. But they have been removed before, and so we should not dismiss that as something. If she keeps on acting in a way where there is no negotiation, then we got to get rid of her. Robert Dove was a parliamentarian picked by Republicans and got fired when Democrats took over, and then came back when Republicans took power again, but then got fired by Republican Trent Lott. So these kind of fights have happened. But let's be honest, the fact that she's in the news means we have a little bit of a problem. We just got to be honest with ourselves. We should not know her name. You should not know her name. We should not be dedicating precious time on our program to Elizabeth McDonough. Illegals getting Medicaid is a red line. That cannot be allowed. Figure it out. If she gets in the way of illegals getting Medicaid, then we're going to have to ratchet this up a little bit. But I want to just make sure we are being fair. This is not a final ruling. This is not a complete judgment. Let me read from you from a top source, a text message that I was texting. The Democrats are leaking. This is the best source that we can have. Better than anyone on cable news, trust me. The Democrats are leaking about what the parliamentarian has done. A lot of it is either out of context or will be dealt with through very minor language changes. There is a version of the Medicaid stuff that will be passable, but the Democrats are leaking this to try to F us politically. Okay? That's a top-tier source here. But we're making you aware of this growing situation. But let me just repeat this. Quote, The Democrats are leaking about what the parliamentarian has done, but a lot of it is either out of context. Oh, the Democrats would never lie and the Democrats would never leak. By the way, that's why the Democrats were not briefed on Operation Midnight Hammer, because they would have leaked it. And quote, a lot of it will be dealt with through very minor language changes. This is a game and a game of spin, and it's largely a propaganda war. But we got to keep our eyes on her. If she stands in the way of us getting rid of Medicaid for illegals, dramatic action is necessary.